Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear students of English language teaching and TESOL, I welcome you again in this second video. And today we'll be talking about the teaching of English in Pakistan. It is quite essential for the new generation English language teachers and students to know that what is the history of English language teaching in Pakistan and what developments had been through for the last 70 or 60 years. Of course, when we look into the history of English language teaching in Pakistan, we'll have to trace back a few of the glimpses from when English actually came to subcontinent. And it is a very interesting and very well-known fact that English basically was introduced in the subcontinent as the language of East India Company, and then we had unfortunately in this country a very long history of English or British rule, British India. So basically English language was introduced by East India Company, who were traders, and then finally we had seen that how English from merchants and missionaries came on and was introduced to English society, English bureaucrats and military in the times of the British India. So that is very interesting. But the question of acceptability has always been very crucial when we look into the history of English language in the subcontinent. We have the acceptability of English more in the Indian part of the subcontinent than in this Pakistani part of the subcontinent, where English received, not that kind of consideration and credibility right in the beginning as it did in the English part of the subcontinent, the Indian part of the subcontinent. So anyway, after the partition, we have all this, blessing of Almighty Allah, Pakistan is a free state, India is a free country, and our neighbor. But English continued to be the language of the elite right after Pakistan's independence, and the language of the upper class people, the bureaucrats, we can say in the military also. But there continued to be the teaching of English in the missionary schools in many of the Pakistani urban cities like Karachi, Lahore, and Peshawar also, and then in Islamabad as well. But these schools were very famous at that time, right after independence. But these were supposed to cater education for the people of elite, people of the higher class, and those people then, if qualified from those great English medium schools like Karachi Grammar School, St. Michael, Edson College, Lahore, and some other schools of English medium elites at the time, were then of course given to serve in the civil service Pakistan, and then rule this country, administer and be part of the civil administration in various phases of this country. But then the problem was that what about a big majority of the people in this country, in this newly formed homeland? Now this big majority of people, unfortunately, had seen, had been through a lot of controversies for English language and its place in the curriculum, simply because of the controversies and because of the confusion or the delusion that English is a foreign language, English is the language of the enemy, English is the language that's going to harm our belief or Islamic faith or something like that. So a very big majority of the people lived to adjust with this dilemma, with this kind of a confusion for several years. So what happened on the part of the state then? English as a compulsory course used to be taught in our syllabus, and which of course was just a course, and there were on the one side English medium instruction schools, and then on the other side, which was the larger chunk of population, there were Sindhi, Urdu, or other schools which only would teach English as a compulsory course. So when English was just taught as a compulsory course, and that was also somewhat done by the teachers who were not properly trained to do that. So it was not able to achieve again the real functions of the purpose of teaching any foreign language or English language for that matter. So it did not achieve that purpose for a very long time. And one of the reasons is that Pakistan, being a multilingual society and a multilingual country, has a lot of barriers, in addition to English being a foreign language. They thought that our languages are under threat. And then they had some cultural barriers, some psychological barriers. But I would say top of all were the linguistic barriers, and or the pedagogical barriers, more importantly. So because our teachers, had been through many years facing the question of acceptability, and having that kind of onus with that language, that it is an international language of communication, and then we should be part of it, and then our students, our citizens, our people should be able to communicate in English and could be able to work and study abroad and live abroad and have an honorable life like every international citizen. So with all these barriers, we come down our history when we have got a lot of political governments, but I can say that we did not realize the true importance of English as an international language until we have President General Musharraf's time in our history. And that was a very critical time, and we saw massive reforms in Higher Education Commission of Pakistan and the higher education sector of Pakistan. We had a University Grants Commission before, but then Higher Education Commission, and it was under the leadership of Dr. Ataur Rahman, a very legendary character in our country. And then we saw that he brought very revolutionary reforms into the higher education setup. For example, before that time, we had the degree of MA English. What would we say that we don't know whether it was language or it was literature. It was all just MA English or B Honours English. No further explanation what it actually is. But in the beginning of the 21st century, let's say 2001, 2, and 3, and later on, we saw this frequent discussion and debate taking place in academic circles and even policy planning circles, that there should be two streams of English, like English language and English literature, and then language be taken further into linguistics, and the students be given opportunity to study whether literature or language or linguistics for that matter. So this development took place just after 2000, and then very interestingly, by then almost more than 50 or 60 years, there was no clear policy of what should be the status of English in this country. So we have got one English medium schools on the one hand, and other Urdu, Sindhi medium schools on the other hand, taking just English as a compulsory course. But again, our not very well trained teachers being one of the great factors, I would say that's where I said the pedagogical barriers are really very important, and they have been very defining in our history. And this I would say was a very strong barrier in terms of why our students could not grow, because they were never taught English as a language. They were taught just the grammar of language, which is, in other terms, just teaching the linguistic side of the language, not the communicative side of language. And whenever we talk about the teaching of English, we talk about all these things: teaching of listening, teaching of reading, writing, and speaking skills. And unfortunately, this was never done. So what actually been throughout our history and the teaching of English in Pakistan was that we had problems in the pedagogical side, and many of our students who took this course, compulsory course, even they complete their graduation, but were not able to find good jobs in the market simply because they were not able to communicate. Because they were not able to communicate, many of them could not even compete for such very good jobs, like in Public Service Commission or in Civil Services of Pakistan. So English continues to be, and it looks like is still a barrier for many of our graduates, many of our very competent otherwise graduates who are not able to move on into their professional life simply because they do not have good communication skills. So my dear students, in this course we definitely will be learning about what actually the way forward be when we are introduced with this course of English language teaching and TESOL. And of course the background of this is again the same, that we have in Pakistan a very weak history, a very poor history, a very critical history, a very complex history of English language teaching. And behind it, because we've been through for about 70 years, but we are still not having an updated syllabi at the college level or even in the schools. We do not, now syllabi is a constantly changing document, but we do not have that good document which keeps on meeting the needs of our young learners and college students and the university students later on. So we receive students at the university who are really not well prepared to receive the challenges that society poses for them or the international environment poses for them. So largely, my dear students, the scenario of English language teaching in Pakistan is very grey. And we as now, you as now being new researchers, teachers and students, take this responsibility and explore the possibilities of how English language need to be taught and how it should be learned, and what research in this particular discipline informs us. I mean, so very interesting course, a very interesting language, very powerful language, and a very fascinating language it is. But the question is whether we are prepared to achieve the benefits of this language, or we are not prepared to achieve this language. We have got now in our country all the jobs, the better jobs like PCS and civil service in English, and their medium instruction is English. So if you've got very good English language skills, then only you can qualify these exams. So English language teaching needs a great attention in this country. The way we are teaching is not sufficiently meeting the needs of our learners and our graduates. And obviously, when we teach English language anywhere, the purpose is that the students should be competent enough to meet the linguistic and the communicative purpose of language. But unfortunately, our students, despite being in schools for several years, 10 years or 12 years, not able to read, write and speak correct English. So unfortunately, this situation is very alarming. So our students, I hope, our students of the university and other students in this country who are listening to me, this video, would be preparing to face this challenge, that the real problem is pertains to the methodology of English language teaching. Is very pedagogical, and this is 40 or 50 years old problem. And of course we have come out of the problem of acceptability. We accept it largely, except few segments of society. But then this pedagogical front is very challenging, and for this we need to prepare ourselves. So the reason that the English language, once the Germanic language, traveled to this subcontinent as the language of traders, the East India Company, becoming a language of our court, the language of our parliament, the language of our classrooms, so the language of our country, or official language of communication, and the language of our exams, is a language that is ruling the world now. And of course, we have got more varieties of English nowadays, and Pakistani English is one of those varieties. Of course, Indian English is more established sense a variety of English, because they had more acceptability right much earlier than us. And our part of this country, world, has received it a bit later. So I hope that this is going to help you a lot, and this course of English language teaching is going to make you a good teacher of English at least. So as I often say you in my classes, that when you are coming to English language teaching class, assume yourself that you are English language teachers, not English language students. Now, interestingly, when I was going through some resources to find out, I was not able to find even a single book on the title Teaching of English in Pakistan. But I must appreciate there are a few books written by Dr. Tariq Rahman on Pakistani English, and then there is another book, some study done by Dr. Ahmad Mahbub, Dr. Mubin Atalat, and another another study by some other English writers on Pakistani English. That's on Pakistani English and on English language education in Pakistan, but not on the teaching of English in Pakistan. This is not really very encouraging, but for you it provides a great opportunity. You being teachers of English, you being researchers of English, can explore into it, can begin a project on writing a book on the teaching of English in Pakistan, its past, its present and future. So there could be a very good book available for the future readers in the market if you plan to write such one book. So my dear students, this is where I must also appreciate the role of in this a very positive role of Society of Pakistan English Language Teachers is very commendable. I've been myself a member of the Society of Pakistan English Language Teachers. They organize conferences every year. I mean, for last almost 30 years, I mean, they have been doing it, and that is one of the brightest parts of our history. And also the role of British Council is very commendable. The USAID and the US consulates, they have been also very, very helpful in offering great opportunities for English language development in this country, providing us scholarships, fellowships, so that we could study this international language, this great language, this global language. You see, now we have reached to a point when there was, once upon a time, there was just a degree in English, but now we would never thought 20 years ago that there will be a plural of English. But now, you see, we have got a very common phrase, that is world Englishes. So we have not only British English dominating the world, but we have got many varieties. We have got Englishes, we got Australian English, we got American English, we got British English, we got Pakistani, we got Indian English, we got South African English, we got New Zealand English. So a lot of varieties. So sometimes the students, when ask me a question, sir, which variety should we study? Well, it was very difficult to answer this question, because definitely we are going to focus into our local context, and language is always very socialized, very contextualized mechanism, and we need to realize this, that we can't really study the RP, or we can't really study the standard British English in the way that is taught and done in the United Kingdom, or the way it is taught in America, for example. So what the best answer to this question is that we need to focus on how close we are to the RP and how close we can become to the standard British English and become good users of English. I mean, we need to pay attention a lot to the use of English, because you see, one of the problems that we see trace back into our history is that English language teaching has always been restricted to the classrooms. And this is what I most of the times I point out to my students, that you take this English out of the classroom, because you are in the classroom for 45 minutes, maybe 90 minutes. But as long as you're not able to use it outside, in your outside world, in a real life situation, English is not going to be very friendly with you. It's just like swimming. You can never learn to swim just by reading books. So you need to use English in your outside world, and this language is really a great language that is going to define your future, is going to shape your future. So with this said, I hope that I'll be downloading some of the handouts for all of you on my website, and then you can download these resources for your future reference also. The last of all that I would like to ask you is to write your questions in this in the comment section of this video. It is important that we receive good questions from you, because now when we do not have any more experience of any more opportunity of face-to-face learning, and we are all learning online, or we are learning through these videos, it will be very interesting to have another part of this picture, and I would like to take your questions in the coming days. So please put your questions as much as you can, and if you remember, I always say that good students are those who make good questions. So my dear students, I wish you good luck. Take special care of yourself. See you again very soon. So I'll be coming up again to answer your questions, or if possible maybe on Zoom, if I did not receive a greater number of questions for one particular video. So thank you very much. Take special care of yourself. Allah Hafiz.